Hey, ADVTRES here, hanging out with Alice. And I just got done doing a couple mods that I will kind of want to showcase to you all. So let's get into it. So we did a couple things over the last couple weeks. One is we installed the Baja S2Pros. We really set these up for chase lights when we're riding with other people. And also if we need auxiliary camp lights. The other thing is we swapped out our Pelican vault for the Roam case and used the Sherpa mounts to mount it to the roof rack. And then the last thing is we installed an aluminum CBI full skid plate. So let's talk about the Baja S2 Pros. I went with the S2 Pros. They're good output on the light. I could get the harness with it, so I didn't have to do too much of my own wiring. And I also like the small form factor to set them up. The install was a little fiddly, right? I got the light splitting harness, which is taking two lights, splitting those into one, and then had to run an extension from that splitting harness down into the engine bay. And then from the engine bay, I was able to connect to the harness that you can order for the lights that has a switch and the battery connectors and everything else. I didn't use the mounting hardware that came with the lights. Instead, I actually ended up using the slide-in bolt that comes with the Sherpa mount, and then went to the hardware store and got a bolt that fit. I ran the lights through the roof rack, and I also used the sleeving. You can get the sleeving in Amazon. I'll put it in description. I used the sleeving to run that extension line through. I'll also put the gauge of the wire that I used and those links in the description as well. I used zip ties to hold down pretty much everything, and then looming tape to kind of loom everything together. So the lights run the full length of the roof rack. That's the extension line that I had to make. And that extension line, I actually used 2 extra plugs I had from some extra Baja lights, so I didn't have to solder anything. And then I ran it through the sleeving, and I used the M3 zip tie stick-ons to stick it along the gutter, and then use the zip ties to hold it down. And then I pressed it into the drain on the windshield using some of the plastic body mount kit tool. So I pressed that in, and then I ran that extension wire I had created into the engine. And you can pop out that little plastic piece, and then ran it through and then up and around, and then the harness runs across. Now the harness has the ability to plug in 2 lights, but because I used the splitter, I only plugged in 1. So now I actually have an extra harness, so that when I install the ditch lights, I'll be able to plug those right into the existing harness. So I ran it through the engine harness, down around, zip tied it along the edge, along the back edge of the engine compartment, and I really made sure I got it really zip tied down, and then secured the relay to the frame, or to the inside of the engine bay, using a sheet metal screw, and then used fishing line and ran the wire through the grommet into the engine bay. And now this grommet has a lot of things going through it, so eventually at some point I'll need to come back and actually put silicone around it. And then to fish it through, I just used a piece of hot wire, the heavy gauge hot wire that you use for horses and things. And I kept the light switch that came with the harness. No sense in switching it out. Now this is it without the lights, and then this is it with the Amber S2 Pro lights, and they work super well. Tons of light. I think I'm going to be really happy with it. The next thing that we did is we swapped out our old Pelican vault case with the Roam 93 liter case. And I used the Sherpa mounting hardware. Now I have a 3/4 inch rack, so it didn't fit, so I needed to add extensions so I could get a tight fit. So I just added some extension sleeves and then was able to ratchet it down. Love the box, has tons of room to hold all my gear. The hinges are heaven, and the fact that it only has 3 latches on the front versus the Pelican vault case has latches on both ends and along the side. That was just heaven.
And if you're asking me, why am I laying down on the ground? It's because I want to show you the last mod that I did with Alice. So let's take a look.
This last mod is actually the CBI aluminum full skid plate, and this was a little bit of a install. And if you're installing these, I'd recommend, you know, you're going to be under there for a while. There's a lot of, you know, different bolts and screw bolt sizes. And if you can lift your rig up to give yourself more room, you're going to find your back, your shoulders really appreciate it. Now, I went through and took a look after I got it installed, so I knew all the screw sizes or bolt head sizes. So basically, you're running 19s, 16s, 14s, and 12s. Millimeters is the sizes that you're going to be needing for this install. I'm also interested to see how the oil filter pan, that's the one that's right in the front, how that survives over time. So we'll see how it holds up, you know, over the years. The other interesting thing about this plate is that the rear skid portion of it actually has a seam that's exposed, and I'm not sure why they didn't tuck it under the top skid plate, but it just seems to me that it's going to catch on stuff, or the bolt heads are going to catch on things. So we'll have to see, like those covers, and you can see the lip of the rear skid, you know, here. We'll have to see how, through time, this thing actually holds up and wears in, you know, with usage. And on the 4Runner, one of these bolts is hidden. I think it's under the catalytic converter. It was just a misery to try to tighten it. And you're going to find that the CBI video versus your install, unless you have a lift, and if you have big hands, I really feel sorry for you, because trying to get all these bolts in was a bit of a test of my patience. And then just some views from the front and rear and showing the rear drive shaft.